Yeah,
Blow it
hold
up.
on. That's what I'm doing. What up?
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
hey. So Tim and I just got off this really great call with Matt Lee and Phyllis from CIS and about 70 or 80 other people talking about Stack. So it was like really timely. Like I didn't even know
Yeah.
like so Matt, our good friend Matt Lee, put together this working group to talk about stack alignment specifically to CIS. So both the Tims are armed now with 70 plus people's worth of comments. So we're ready. I literally was like, we're a couple seconds late here because I'm like still listening, like, hold on. And so, anyways, happy Friday. Oh, wow. First Friday in December. This is crazy nuts. Like, it's already like, what's Christmas? Not too long away, right? So, hey, Jesse. What's one family tradition that you guys do for Christmas or this holiday season if people don't like the word Christmas?
One family tradition is, I don't know, it's pretty standard, but we go cut down our tree, bring it in, and decorate it, put the lights up, and yeah, have a nice family day doing that. It
Nice.
depends. It can go one of two ways.
Okay.
Either everyone's fighting and everyone's mad at the end, or it's like a wonderful Christmas experience at the end. This year was the wonderful end. Last year was not so
Oh,
good.
good.
I will say
Good.
last year I got so frustrated because my daughter didn't check the lights, and she told me she did before I strung the whole tree, and I found out that all the lights were missing bulbs everywhere. So I literally cut the lights off the tree, went outside and started shooting my shotgun at some stuff because I was so
Perfect.
upset.
Perfect. You went all office space, the
Yeah,
printer, right? That's
yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. So, what about you, Mr. Schnur? One family tradition, my friend.
Family tradition. I mean, holidays, we are pretty lame. I mean, we are in New York City, so it's very festive, but we do. I think last year we got a tree. So we're kind of here on the weekend, or sometimes we're here on the weekend, sometimes we're not. So, we,
Low key.
traditions like, there'll be like a 2-year tradition, and then we kind of like forget about it. But, I mean, we used to get our tree on like Thanksgiving every year, but being a city slicker now, we don't do it. I did take a tree back on the subway last year from Brooklyn. So I was getting some looks, Yeah.
That's awesome. I could just picture that now.
It was pretty. It was a good 7-footer too. So it was like kind of just like,
How many seats did you take up, right? That's awesome. So, I mean, I don't cook a lot. I cook when my wife's working or whatever, but the Christmas meal is one that at least one aspect of the meal I take great pride in doing, and I save my pennies all year. So everybody has like those coin jars, right? So I just throw my coins in it, and then I come Thanksgiving, I take it all out, count it all up, and I'm like, ooh, I have enough to buy the roast beast, and I get one of these, bone in, whatever, big old hunk of meat. And we have it. I have it literally down to a science that it comes out perfect every time. The problem is the oven is usually locked up and you can't open it. And actually, I tape it shut so it doesn't get open for 6 hours. Which, when my wife wants to like make the casserole and make the this and then make the that, I'm like, don't touch the oven. So, but we do a giant family meal. We invite the relatives and friends, and for the first probably 15 years of living here, we would do a Christmas open house the Saturday before Christmas, and literally open the house up, and people would flow in all day, starting around noon till midnight, wee hours of the morning, hanging out, just like that. Come and hang out for an hour, that shopping stuff, and then. Well, as kids got older, we kind of, like you said, Tim, traditions go by the wayside. But enough of that already, right? So today,
let's come back to this, this working group, which I think is an amazing initiative, right? Like,
exactly. And you know what?
Vendors, right? Mapping vendors to CIS controls, right? 100.
Well, wait. I got something for you.
Okay.
How about try 500 tools? That's how many I have in my stack. How about try 500 tools? That's how many I have in my stack.
I mean, you must map.
So we're joined by Arnold today, aka Jesse, Dr. Jesse. And so, we're going to get into here. Let's just pull this up over here. We'll add that over here. Yes, we've already had the title slide, but let's talk about these tool stuff. Let's talk about like what is in my stack and like the traditional way of MSP thinking, right? I don't know, pretty outdated, don't you think?
Yeah. And so this comment comes up, and I love, I'll credit Alex Farling really pushing this at Lifecycle Insights last year, right? He's like, in a typical MSP, MSSP offering, how does your stack map to CIS, right? And I think we're kind of spoiler alert, like just jumping into the slide right away. CIS Control 7, you can see kind of where the controls used to be and where, right, and then where they went in version 8. And version 8 timeline was like 2020, mid to late 2020, and you saw this massive shift, right? So traditional MSP service offering, you would build a network, people would be in the office, and then you had everyone working remotely. Right. So just some general themes here, and you can chime in, Jesse and Tim as well. Right. Yeah. Zero trust went way up this,
Absolutely.
And by the way, these are in order of priority. So 1 and 2 are more important than 9 or 7. So little spoiler alert, like I said, you're going to hear me talking about my ideal stack, and I'm sure Jesse and Tim, there'll be some parallels here as well. But the world changed in 2020. If your MSP offering is the same as it was in 2019 as it is now, I mean, that's a problem, right? So
and why is that a problem, right? I think you kind of talked a little bit about remote work, right? So let's talk real briefly. Prior to COVID, prior to the massive amount of work from home in the workforce, right? Traditional network, most companies, I hate to say most, a lot of companies were, everybody would go to the office. There would be a network. There would be devices. There would be people at their desk. That was kind of the norm for 20, 30, 50, hundreds and hundreds of years, right? And so as an MSP, it's pretty easy to manage. Put a firewall in, put a managed switch in, manage the devices, get the RMM. It was pretty easy, quote, to deal because it's self-contained, right?
Yep.
Fast forward, the world stops, everybody goes home, and you're dealing with the, WRT 54G Linksys routers. You're dealing with, oh my gosh, I have to buy a bunch of laptops now because people aren't taking their desktops home. So that traditional network is gone, and it's spread all over the country, right? And now what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so this changes everything, right? So traffic is not, you're not in the nest anymore, as he says in old school, right? That's a good one, Jesse.
Yeah.
Look, we're not in the nest anymore. I thought we could do anything here.
The tree of trust.
So the trust, right? You're not in this network where you're controlling the traffic coming in and out. You're leaving the network, you're going home, you're operating. A lot of the breaches we saw in the last year even were kind of surprising, right? Like the last pass breach, right? The guy was working at an unauthorized shadow IT home computer with his admin access, right? Unforgivable, but that's for another story for another day. But that's happening all the time. During COVID, people were working from home, right? So like, how do you secure these people? You basically just need to assume that you're not in a network anymore. Like every single employee can operate anywhere, like on the World Wide Web in the world, right? Yeah. So what does that require, Tim? Right? Like what are some of the things like we saw on that change from CIS 7 to CIS 8? Things like data access controls, right? Things like zero trust. things like really protecting authentication and identity. So you really see those things move up, and you're seeing this kind of perimeter security approach go to the wayside. And there's, are they still important? It certainly can be helpful, but people are leaving the fence line. Jesse's cattle are running to the next yard. Right?
Well,
Right.
yeah, I think it's a kind of a trite saying at this point, but the identity is the new perimeter, right? And even you could say data is the new perimeter. Just to go back to what you were saying about COVID, I mean, at the MSP that I was the CISO at the time, when that happened, I kind of fortunately got a lightning bolt about 2 or 3 months in, and I think it was after we were like cooking hot dogs over the campfire in the backyard to try and keep the kids from going stir crazy, right? And I'm like, so anyways, I said, hey, I think we really need to develop a work from home, and that was right when SASE was coming to the forefront. Identified a vendor, got that to market, and we really saved a lot of people's businesses, right? By dropping that in, and we made a pretty penny doing it, but it wasn't profiteering or anything like that. Don't get the wrong idea. But no, we made a good amount. We quickly deployed a SASE and ZTNA model and ran with that, and then kind of never looked back, right? So that is the way that people are working today. And I think, you talked about it's not the network anymore, but really what is SASE and ZTNA doing but just bringing the perimeter and bringing the network through software-defined logic and giving you those same tools that you do need, like network detection and response and and those types of detection mechanisms.
So when our MSP and one of our companies was like, that's it, we're all going to work from home starting tomorrow, like back up, right? So as the managing the network, managing the endpoints, managing the clients, like I maintained FedRAMP moderate for years with no tools. Well, I say no tools. I mean, Word, Excel, like, GPO, Active Directory, VPN, Fortinet clients, whatever. But I literally had like my stack was quote, quote, nothing. And we were maintaining FedRAMP moderate at that level, getting ATO'd by the feds year after year, well, every 3 years. So it's possible. It's just not possible to do it at scale. And let me bring this right back to full circle. We were already doing this. People were already working remotely because that was part of their job at that point. And why could we efficiently go from everybody in the office to the very next day, nobody in the office, and never skip a beat and still never have an incident? Because before all of that, we had all of our processes in place. We had all of our stuff in place that says, this is how we connect to the server from home. This is how we do that when we're at a hotel. We don't get on Wi-Fi's. We have a VPN client. We do work this way. So we were, as we always talk about here, we were on left of boom. We were all well prepared, and literally overnight, closed the doors and nobody missed an ounce of work. People missed work, but you get it. Like nothing stopped us from surviving as a company and surviving in our clients. And I did that with little to no tools, right? I did that with Active Directory. I did that with a solid VPN client to our Fortinet devices, right? I did that with a work from remote policy or work from home policy. I did that with literally next to nothing tool wise. Now, fast forward 2023, what all happened, all the SaaS tools, like Jesse mentioned, all these things are popping up everywhere.
Tim, really you were Dr. No.
I was Dr. No.
Because you were Dr. No or whatever, Mr. No, whatever you called yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I literally
configurations, right? Yeah. Like the ability for people to do things, like it's all zero trust. How about zero functionality? Let's just start from like you're allowed to do your business stuff and that's it.
Pretty much.
And that's how you were able to basically adhere to one of the toughest compliance frameworks in the world, right? I mean, policies, configurations, processes, right? Just locking things down, right? And I think that'll be a big theme here. And banks have always done this, right? Banks were COVID happened and nothing happened, right? Because they had zero trust in 2018 and 2017, whatever it was.
2007, when I took over and walked into the environment from my predecessor, the very first thing I did, and this is going to sound a little nutty, is I called Microsoft up and said, hey, come audit me because I don't know what I have for licensing. I just walked in the door. And by the way, Microsoft does do free SAM engagements where they will come in and audit everything and tell you what you have and don't have, and the licensing appropriately. So IG1, I had to figure out what the hell we had. And I spent the first year just getting to know what was it, where was it, how is it, blah, blah, blah. And then the next probably 18 to 24 months, locking it down. And I got Dr. No written all over me. But fast forward to 2023, here we are now. The work environment has changed. We were well prepared, right? And that was because now as an MSP, I can take all those lessons learned and put in some right tools, the smallest amount of tools, and do it at scale and become efficient.
Yep. Software's eating the world, right? So a lot of those things that were people, processes, and non-technical have been softwareized or SaaSized or whatever we want to call it. So two things.
Am I too early for our next slide?
No, I don't think we're. And it's interesting when you put the number 2 up now. The balloon. I don't know what does that, but I learned that yesterday. Did it do it again? No. Anyway, so two things here. Two things I wanted to say. The first is why did I mention CIS and why did you mention FedRAMP, right? And like we both think CIS is a great thing, and we just had this CIS working call, right? Because I think it's one of the most modern frameworks that truly reflects what's going on in the world. So if you believe in the importance of CIS, a lot of the things we're saying here won't ruffle feathers, won't be controversial, because I know there's people that'll probably piss off somewhere on the, listening to this. But that's one thing. So a lot of what I'm saying ties back to CIS because it is one of the most modern frameworks that's up to date, thinking about like how the world and how adversaries attack us, right? So that's one thing. And the second thing we really got into is like this idea of being Mr. No, Tim. And I think that'll kind of, how you use the tools and how you configure the tools and how much rope you kind of give the end user is really going to be a big theme of like, what tools do you need and why do you need them? So, anyway, I think we can jump into the controversial stuff now. So,
well, and that's it, because the last 20 plus, however many decades of like, I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, because of things like this. Let me do it. Whether or not it's right or whether or not it's good is the completely different story, right? Because things like this allow me to like, I want to download this app and I want to give it my credit card and I want to play my game. Because I can. And so I think CIS, you're right. It's an easy iterative. I don't want to say it's an easy. It's an iterative growing and building process for us to be able to, as practitioners, as MSPs, to be able to walk through that, right? However, when we start thinking about what do we do, right? Because the challenge that we hear, and like he puts a really great question up there, hey, you need zero trust. And our customers like, yeah, I don't trust you, 0%.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what? So, really great question here on like rolling stuff out, right? I don't think, and I don't know, forgive me if I'm wrong. Do we want to try to address this in this call today on the objections?
Yeah, I mean, so this is, like I said, so CIS, how the products map to CIS can really form. I'm hoping this will change the game, right? Because it'll incentivize vendors they'll have to measure themselves against CIS. And because of that, like buyers will understand kind of like what they're getting and what they're not getting and where there's major holes in their offering. So I think that's important. I was kind of reading the rest of what he said, but what are your thoughts, Tim, on this?
Well, I can jump in. I can jump in real quick. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I actually take a little bit maybe of a left turn from the the consensus opinion here, at least from what I hear in the MSP sphere today, is that I'm more leaning toward working with clients and not necessarily requiring a low watermark. Now, I'm not saying that, a client says, I don't want to do anything, and I refuse to pay for a single ounce of security. Yeah, that's probably an indication of a different type of relationship of the client. But I don't think that if we're going to require 10 controls for a client to come on board and they say, well, we can't afford that right now, maybe we can afford half, and they're willing to work with you. I am more of the opinion that the land and expand and the risk approach is the way to go. So that might be a little bit of a controversial opinion these days, but that's the kind of way I see it. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with the land and expand. And oh, you know what? By the way, it's been the most profitable, right? You've heard me tell this story in the long run, right? You got the client off of Upwork, wanted to do a HIPAA assessment, didn't know what HIPAA meant, educating them along the way, working through an analysis and adding things along the way. Land, yeah, I'll do an analysis, but you know what? It's not going to get you where you need to be. But let's do it anyways. You know what? I'm not going to charge you for it because I'm going to make up for it over here.
Yeah.
Right? And that
You nailed it, Tim. Yeah. The why, right? Like that client coming in the door is not going to understand the why, and he's not going to understand, he or her is not going to understand CIS controls. So you got to start somewhere. And if you're just kind of like fending off non-ICP fits, as Jesse calls them, you're not gonna be able to start somewhere and have that conversation. So Jesse and I have a little rejection con thing coming up here where I think we're going to dig into this a little bit. So.
Yeah. I have one requirement for my stack. I'll give you one guess what it is. VC
It doesn't match the CIS. It is.
Where's the governance?
Yeah.
Where's the governance? Right.
So yeah, but I will say that, and that's almost counterintuitive, right? Like, wait, a client's coming in, they don't know anything about security. We just want to try and get them some protection, and they can buy one thing, and you pick what? You pick vCISO? Yeah, that's what I pick, because like you said, Tim, it's a continuous education and risk discussion with the client. And I will just tell you a recent engagement I had that just solidified this for me even further was not larger, but a mid-market, like 300-person company. They have a lot of work to do in the security program. They have application security requirements. They don't have an SDLC in place, things like that. So we did the risk assessment initially, onboarding, and gave them the report and gave the board the report and the executive team. And it was not a fun meeting, right? There was a lot of, there's a lot of bristling, like, wait, you want us to spend how much? Oh, and they just attack everything. But what I say about that is you have to let that roll off your back, because think about when someone gives you advice or gives you some hard advice, right? What do you do initially? You bristle. And then you go back and you're laying in bed there for, that night thinking about it. You're like, yeah, they were probably right. So, suffice to say is that actually then come around this month, the board and the executive team was like, after they thought about it and they were confronted with the risk, they said, actually, yeah, we want to reduce the risk by 40 points, right? And so that opened up a whole bunch of things that we wanted to get done and opened up budget. So
wait, I heard a number. You mean like a KPI, like we did a couple weeks ago, like numbers that matter, KPI, like always have a number, right? So I want to talk a little bit of here before we kind of get into
and we're going to get into the deep. We're going to get into tool by tool.
We're just kind of talking real quick, but let me address Heath's question here, right? So how do you approach it? I'm going to quickly summarize: accountable, control missing, something bad happens, right? So we had Brad Gross on a couple weeks ago here on TEAMTIM Live. Just scroll back through our LinkedIn feed, you'll find it, or whatever. It starts with setting the expectation appropriately in your managed service contract. And your managed service contract, alongside your statement of work, sets those expectations appropriately, right? Now, as you dig in as an MSP and you do your analysis, you do an assessment, you have the vCISO conversation, Jesse, and you identify those areas of risk that, number one, you didn't know about in the beginning, right? This is why you have a solid solid managed service agreement, MSA, and then a statement of work to back that up. And as you discover stuff, You work it out with the client and you determine, listen, you don't have 2FA on everything. You have it on your Microsoft stuff, but it's not on accounting, right? It's not on your payroll stuff. Like, we've identified that area of risk. You want to put it on there or not? You want to deal with it or not, right? And if they don't, then you have the risk register and all that fun stuff, or you just go and fix it, right? So to answer this question, you start with your managed service agreement, start with your scope of work, reach out to our friends, Brad Gross, Eric Tills, and the other MSP lawyers in the space, and they'll be able to actually work that through in that process with you accordingly.
Yeah, and I just want to have a quick follow on to that, Tim, is that, there's that part of it, right? But it's also about level setting with the customer. So you can get into, if you've gotten into litigation and you're protected, but you now have to go through a year of of legal battles just to finally prove out and win your case, like nobody wants to be there. Nobody wins when that happens. So I would say to Heath, I think actually the VCSO and the risk assessment counteracts that very effectively, because you've held up very clearly to the customer, hey, you have an 80% risk in this environment. And so there's no real, number one, you're covered legally, you have a legal cover. But number two, you have a good relationship where the customer actually knows, like, hey, I've been talking to you for months, every quarter, about your high risk. So when an incident does happen, it's never even a consideration like, oh, they weren't doing their job. Well, yeah, shame on us. We took the risk and we got hit. So now we're going to implement some controls. And so I think it's both of those things working together, one for the legal shield and the other for the relational shield, right?
Right. And it's just like any aspect of a business. You're going to have a CEO and a CFO, and they're going to talk. They're going to talk about how they're spending money, how they're making money, right? You're just getting yourself in that conversation as well. Yeah, albeit third party person, but businesses don't operate in a vacuum. We're just, as we talked about even longer ago with Wes and everybody else, having a seat at the table, building that relationship of trust. Right. So I think right now, I think we're just going to get into it. We've got 30 minutes left.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to.
The risk management, we can come back to that. Jesse and I have a good little rejection con on that going next week. But Jesse,
all right,
you want to jump?
Your eye card here, and my eyes are like, oh, hold on. So
wait, you got to play the Arnold. Play my Arnold clip for this.
I'm getting it. Hold on. So yeah, as we talk, like, wait, what?
If you don't have 500 tools, what the hell are you doing anyway? If you don't have 500 tools, what the hell are you doing anyway?
I mean, because we all, right? So we all need more tools, right? And I mean, for me, I was like, hold on a minute.
Go. Get to the vendor. Do it now. Go. Get to the vendor. Do it now.
Right. So
I should have never sent those.
I am forever got your voice and your Arnold here, so this is going to be great. But yeah, let's go back to Jesse's eye chart, because
How about try 500 tools?
All right, so I want to explain this quickly, because this is an exercise I use when I'm working with either clients or MSPs when we're deciding a couple different things, right? This is a great way to identify where your skills and your offerings overlap with certain industries to start honing in on an ICP if you're building a security program or a VCSO program. But it's also a good way to start looking at what tools you should be offering. And so I want to explain this quickly, because I think this is a really great way to start thinking about risk and start simplifying risk as you build out a risk program for your MSP. So if you look on the left, there's those three columns with the lighter blue. We have a bunch of different industries there. You could change those to be different industries, different departments within an organization, different sizes of clients within a similar industry, but that's kind of your control there. That's your key. So there you go. Thank you, sir. Then to the right of that, you have the three main types of compromise that pretty much any cyber incident is going to involve. You have ransomware or sabotage, like something that interrupts operations. So it could be DDoS or something like that, but typically it's ransomware. You have data breaches, right? That's the other one. And then you have cyber fraud, okay? That's wire transfer, monetary loss, monetary theft, crypto theft, things like that, okay? So Those are the three major attacks that any organization could experience. And so you want to rank those in first, second, and third priority to the organization. Now, ranking something third does not necessarily make it unimportant. It's just that it's less important than the first, right? So we look at financial services. We have first is data breaches typically, right? Second is ransomware and sabotage, and third is cyber fraud. Now, the reason we go third there, or I would choose third there, is because there's insurance and there's backing there for that kind of stuff. So although it's not good, it's the least impactful to the organization. Now, most of these are just topically assigned. Don't screenshot this and use it as canon, right? You have to work this out for yourself. But then when you have those three major types of breaches, now we want to look at how do the attacks start, or what's the opening attack vector for doing one of those breaches, and that's the dark blue over on the right. So we have things like phishing. We have things like endpoint malware, somebody using BYOD and bringing a computer in or something like that. Account takeover, external or cloud vulnerabilities, apps or API compromise, social engineering, all these different ways that an organization could be compromised. Okay, so rank those. You get three first priorities, 3 second priorities, and then the rest are third. So you work this out for the target you want to go after, and that's going to then inform what's in your stack. Let's talk about financial services or SaaS and software. They are going to tip.
Nope. Did we lose Jesse's sound?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Or did I lose Jesse's sound?
Did you mute him?
I'm here. I don't know.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I do now.
No dart in your neck. You sound good.
All right. Yeah. We're going all sorts of crazy today. So anyways, and then after they're using those first three, then you can drop third in for the rest of them. Right now, again, this is about prioritizing, because if everything is a priority, then nothing's a priority. So, you take this and then start building out your stack. So let's go back to the financial services example. We have data breaches as the primary issue, phishing, account takeover, and I said social engineering, right? Some people might argue that it's app or API compromise. Take those three, find out how you disrupt those attack vectors in the most easy way possible, and the tools that do that. And looking below, we pick out of there, and that's in our primary stack, right? And so this is how we start to do risk and start to build out a stack for our ICP and the industry we're working with. Now, like you said, Tim, your eyes went cross-eyed. Imagine you're trying to service these 15 different industries and different sizes of clients and offer cybersecurity and vCISO services to them. That is next to impossible. So you need to focus. You need to pick a couple industries, or one industry, I would say, and one type of customer, one size of customer. Customize your stack for that and learn how to execute that really well. Have your marketing, have everything else feed through that. So I'll get off my high horse there, but this is something I'm very passionate about, as you can tell.
So if I'm going to work through this, right, and this is Jesse's proprietary stuff, so don't be stealing it. But if you do want to implement this, obviously reach out to Jesse at Power PSA, and he can actually help your MSP build this to scale. So I'm looking at, I'm financial services. I need to deal with data, phishing, and account takeover, and social engineering. So I'm thinking through this, like those are my top priorities. And so that portion of my stack, data breach.
Right.
All right. IG2, where the hell is the data?
Right. And you see,
right. So, and then I look at things like, where the hell is IG2? Where is the data?
Yeah.
Oh wait, Cavello, great, awesome, thank you. And then move over to the next one, like phishing, right? Oh wait, phishing and account takeover and social engineering. Okay, social engineering and phishing, maybe I would put that in the similar kind of categorical bucket and do like, what am I doing for security awareness training? What am I doing for phishing? And what are my policies and procedures to align with that? Yeah. All right, so now I'm like breaking this down, right? I'm like, all right, so I'm going to do this real quick, and I'm going to do over here, and I'm going to go, what's in the stack? We're already 4 minutes late into the actual what's in the stack conversation. So I want to get into let's level set. First and foremost, there's the common stack. We're not talking about that, right? We're going to make this document available for you after. The link will be in the chat comment, so make sure you grab it. But let's not talk about the common stack. in the common stack, PSA, RMM, accounting tools, CRM, financial, licensing management, maybe training. There's things that you should just be doing, period. We're not talking about that. We're talking about all the other fun stuff down here, right? And that's what I want to spend the next half an hour really digging into and really having the crux of the conversation. Now, these are by no means no order. And yes, I put our products in there because why wouldn't we? Because this is what we're doing. So you don't have to use our products, obviously. And we tend to try to not talk about our stuff, but I wanted to kind of have this conversation, right, around what are some of the categories that we think should be part of a practice, a 2023 version of the MSP stack, with the remote workforce that we have now.
Are we talking vendors? Or are we talking just nondescript?
We're gonna talk categories, right?
Okay.
So
we'll keep it vendor agnostic. We'll try.
Categories. Let me just. Categories. This out here, right? Because hey, that was example. So like documentation, probably a good key category for an MSP to have beyond the normal stack stuff. Would we agree on that? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I believe so.
I mean, you're really getting into governance, right, Tim? I mean, there's a reason NIST has a.
I don't even want to use the word governance. I just want to say, should documentation be part of your stack and what you're doing in your process in your MSP as a business?
Yeah, whether it's vCISO or vCIO or whatever it is, that absolutely should be part of your stack. I mean, I would include that with the default stack. I mean, if you're running an MSP and you don't have at least some sort of document management system going on, you're behind the 8 ball, and I can attest being on both sides of that, right? So I think absolutely it should be part of your stack.
All right, so you think I should actually move?
I would put it
on.
Yeah.
Document. MENTATION.
Yeah.
All right, I'll remove that. Right, and we'll make it. We'll make something else. Great. So.
Tim, you want to go through that other slide real quick and we can come back to this, kind of give some ideas and we kind of fill it out? Yeah. So, I mean, I was obviously pushing on CIS, right? And I think CIS 1 and 2 always surprises everyone, right? Inventory, hardware inventory, software inventory. People are like, how does that prevent any one of those things that Jesse just showed us? Well, if you don't know what you're trying to protect, you can't protect it, right? Like you don't know where your land ends and the next guy's land starts. Where are you protecting? What are you protecting? So I think that's always surprising, and that's a challenge. Well, let's I think we'll get into this, Tim, right? Like there's so many different ways you can pull inventory, right? Like RMM, you could use a data discovery tool, you could use a vulnerability management tool, right? Like you're using the agents, you're doing the network scans. There's probably a half a dozen ways to do inventory. So I think that's incredibly important. I love the agent approach. I also love whether it be Tenable or Cavello or something like that, right? Like scanning out there and basically picking up inventory both on an agent basis, which is an OS basis, looking at software on each machine, or also looking at hardware out there. So really important right off the bat. I'm a big, people talk about agent fatigue, but it's a necessary evil, right? Like I think agents are important. You're not going to get away with getting software on machines unless you put an agent on it.
Right.
I don't know. Am I missing some kind of, cool powers where you can basically say, hey, what's on that machine? You got to get invasive.
Inventory, asset management, common stack.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. And you can, but you can leverage your RMM and PSA for that.
You can, and you should probably do both, right, Jesse? You should probably be auditing what's the difference and why is there a difference.
Yeah. So there's, that we're going to get, I don't want to get into a controls discussion here, but there's active and passive discovery and there's authorized and unauthorized assets, right? That's all part of asset management. So your PSA and your CRM are giving you the authorized active scanning piece of your asset management. So they give you about half of what you need for asset management, right? And then whether it's vulnerability scanning or network detection and response, or even next gen firewalls can do some of this too, doing passive discovery, right? And then detection of unauthorized assets. So if you know what's good, you know what's bad.
Right. So okay, you mentioned vulnerability. You mentioned a bunch of things, firewalls, and you mentioned a bunch of things, right? Like backup.
We mentioned a bunch of tools there.
500 tools.
Yeah, 500. I have my preferences. I love the agent, using reusing a tool.
Yeah.
You're probably so spoiler alert, you're probably gonna do vulnerability management. But why don't you use that tool to do all these other things?
Right.
So all right, hold on, level set here, right? Because network discovery, right? So I'm going to back up to my 2008, 2009 Spiceworks days where I was like, I need to figure out what the hell's going on over here. How do I scan the network? Like, yeah, there's something. Well, I just grabbed Spiceworks, ran it locally, and installed it in locally because it had a discovery tool, right? So, yes, inventory and asset management, but actual scanning and discovery, standard stack, cyber stack. Now we have to remember our audience here on TEAMTIM, right? Is it the copier company that's becoming an MSSP, or is it somebody like Jesse that's been in the space, right? And if I'm thinking of our audience, they might not even understand network discovery.
Well, and I think our audience,
you used words like authenticated and unauthenticated, active and passive. Like, what? I got an RMM, right? So I kind of feel like that advanced network discovery stuff.
And I said we don't want to have networks. I don't want to have anything to do with them.
Right. So I feel like
the world is according to my rule. We'd have, and this is very controversial. Like I said, G Suite, right? Like,
right. So discovery, is that a standard stack, or is that a cyber stack? Is that more advanced?
I would break it down into this. I would if you're to seek to simplify it. Now we can go nuance all day, but to seek to simplify it, I would say authorized asset management is part of your standard stack. Unauthorized asset discovery is part of your advanced stack, and that's where I would make the split. So it's really two pieces: authorized versus unauthorized assets. So authorized asset management, knowing what you have and that it should be there, and managing, warranties and everything else. That's what MSPs have been doing for 20 years, right? Now, finding when an unauthorized device gets on the network and is trying to cause harm, that is a separate advanced security service, in my opinion.
Yep. And Jesse, just to back up why I said that controversial G word, G Suite, you could basically manage a client with Chromebooks, right? Mm-hmm. No networks.
Yeah.
They get to work anywhere. They get to work in Penn Station. They get to work in WeWork. They get to work in Istanbul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And you have them locked down. You've got their browser locked down.
Yeah.
When we talked about Mr. No and Dr. No, right? Like how well can you constrict their access, their ability to do things, right? Like, so that's a very important thing when you talk about architecture of, as you said, Tim said, like a dentist office and, a new fintech company that actually just is using the browser or something like that, right? So like you can really limit attack surface, which is another buzzword, right? Like how much attack surface can an adversary actually attack, right? So I love G Suite, and I know it's controversial. Now, 1%, maybe less MSPs actually use the G Suite, right? Like I know we're in Office 365 world. We're in the Microsoft, as we just heard, right, Tim? World. And, because of that, it terrifies me, right? Like locking down PCs, I mean, these things are just massive attack surface size. And so a lot of the things we're talking about, you're talking about network discovery and things like that, right? Because you're starting with a massive attack surface area.
Yeah.
So a lot of these tools are necessary. It really comes down to like, how much rope are you going to give them?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
No, Jesse, I keep seeing you want to chime in. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, so your fintech example is great, except for the whole development team has admin access everywhere and doesn't and uses Linux and Mac and everything else because Chromebooks don't have the processing power. So
we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about the authentication. And that's like, I think it's the most important thing. So my stack debate, I'll talk about.
All right, let's hear
everything
it.
IAM, PAM, privileged access management, just in time. Passkeys. Jason Rebholz came on. Phishing resistant MFA, right? Like a lot. You just showed your slide. It was like phishing was like obviously, right? Like credentials and a lot of the risks are taken away with that. Like if you've got really good IAM, you are so far ahead of the game.
I agree. Yeah.
Dedicated admin accounts, right? Like the tools we're hearing in the channel, like those things, those guys are earning their keep. I'll tell you that. Like the IAM tools that are out there.
Yeah.
So Jesse, you had something you wanted to Jesse,
no. I was going to say. No, I was saying that tongue in cheek because to your point, that's a much smaller attack surface than the entire organization, right? So I was saying that a bit tongue in cheek, but yeah, I think like you said, shrinking an attack surface is the name of the game. And yeah, anecdotally, I know a friend of mine here who's owns several medical practices. He doesn't even have an MSP because he rolls Google Lockdown Enterprise Browser. He worked for an MSP in college, right? So he learned enough to get that done. And he rolls it out for everybody, and everything's great, So
and that's another thing to talk about. Sorry, Tim. One more thing. If you are doing BYOD, which is massive attack surface area, you're going to have to do something like managed browser.
Yeah. So I'll just leave this out there because Microsoft, Google, Apple, Windows, I don't care, right? I don't care. Like I'm going to work with the clients to move them forward appropriately, what's best for their business, and I'm still going to say no. But to Tim's point, I learned my lesson with Google. So just go to Reddit/RMSP and search for building your Google MSP because I don't know, last time I checked on that thread that I started, there was like 175 comments. So, so I learned my lesson not to mention standardize your stack on Google and say the heck with Microsoft and MDM and all this other things.
Witchcraft. Salem, Massachusetts.
I had to start my MSP all over again, which I'm never going to do. I would only focus on certain verticals that I could put in a Google suite and standardize them on Chromebooks and be done.
Yeah. I want to make a point about this quickly because I know we're running short on time. When you're selecting your stack, you need to become a student of your ICP and, like we talked about, the specific risks and threats for their industry, and then study the attack chains for actors that have successfully compromised and attacked that industry. And then seek for ways to disrupt that attack chain in the most economical way. Like you said, if we can get asset management done with our RMM and vulnerability scanning, right, we leverage that. And then how do we disrupt the phishing attack chain, right? Phishing, malware, lateral movement, how do we mitigate that, right? Email protection, XDR, and then SASE to prevent lateral movement or at least make it harder, right? So, the whole SDLC, I want to point out, an app security piece, that's really like a whole nother MSSP discipline within the MSSP or MSP world, right? So that's like a whole nother program. So if you're dealing with customers like SaaS companies that are doing application development, you better be prepared and have the staff to really meet that demand before you target that vertical. Now there's several people that we know and we talk to all the time that do service that industry and they do really well, but it's a whole different animal. So you have to be prepared, and your stack's going to look way different doing that, right?
Yeah, DevSecOps is very difficult, right, Jesse?
Yeah. So SDLC, and I'm going to say it, and Matt Topper will back me up. Every MSP is doing software development.
Yeah.
Every PowerShell script that you touch, every automation in your RMM that you touch, you're doing SDLC. You're writing code. And you should have an SDLC stuff around that. So, all right, off that soapbox. So, I doesn't say who the LinkedIn user here is, but locally installed app, Zoom, Slack, Find, whatever. Like, obviously, things like well, okay, I'll back up so I'm not mentioning a specific vendor and go back 10 years. Things like AppV from Microsoft that can, provide the ability to either allow or not allow installations of software or approve software lists, right? Zoom, Slack, locally installed things. There's enough solutions in the channel right now. I could think of some really good ones. Our friends at CyberFox and a couple of others, Tech ID Manager and that kind of stuff, dealing with allowing the end user the ability to install apps.
Talent.
Maybe if there are approved app lists, right? That's fine for locally installed stuff. But what about all the SaaS stuff?
Well, I think, that's a great question, because as I kind of closed the logic gates in my mind just now as I was thinking through it, the conclusion I come to is really like we should just be giving stipends for for employees to purchase personal computers, and then just running enterprise browser, right? Because we don't have to worry about it then, right? We're controlling. Yeah.
Maybe.
There you go, Jesse. You're talking about that. You're bringing everything down into that little sliver, little door, right?
It depends on the type. It depends on the type of network. Now, here's the thing: you go back to manufacturing, and you have manufacturing clients. This is all out the window. It's all Windows. You have to do the old school NDR because of the amount of IoT you need. Physical NDR devices in the factory. So again. We're talking this like SaaS, techie, kind of sexy San Francisco, Silicon Valley world, right? Let's go back to, blue collar. We got to build stuff. Okay, so that's a whole nother type of client. Yep.
What about if he's 30 years old, Jesse, and you're like trying to control this thing with, forget it.
Yeah, I can tell you how many Johnny Luck nuts that I've talked to that have an old DOS 3.1 system running on their CNC machine, because that's the only way that CNC machine will be able to run is with a DOS, right? Oh my gosh, back to like 1986. And they can't upgrade it.
So I would say, can we pull that slide up one more time?
Your stack?
Yeah, my stack here. I mean, to me, and I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and take the bullet. Here's what my stack looks like, right? This is if I could get every client to do this, I would feel really good about where they're at on the whole. It might be overkill for some clients. You might not need the SDLC and app security, right? But I think overall, this is a pretty good list that if you find vendors to meet these and or partners to meet these, you can feel confident that you're going to get like 80% of the CIS controls.
Yeah, maybe. We literally just had this call with 70 of us before this. Like, I wouldn't hold your number to 80% of the CIS controls, because is that vendor even doing those controls for themselves?
Well, right.
That's shared responsibility.
This is assuming that the vendor is meeting they're on the top end of meeting all the requirements within that category, right? So let's assume you're best in class vendor for everyone.
So what I'm going to do real quick, and I'm kind of
go back to my slide. Yeah.
Well,
so I don't have as many tools in as Jesse, and
500.
like I said, 500 tools. I'm very heavy 1 through 9. And if you're doing 1 through 9 very well, you can climb without a rope.
Right.
So,
right.
Because everything's just easy for you, right? Like you're really restricting that attack surface area. As I said, CIS 1 and 2, knowing exactly allow lists, non-allow lists. The agent, I think an agent's really important to actually drive that inventory. IAM is incredibly important. Zero trust is incredibly important. Segregated admin accounts. Passkeys or YubiKeys are ridiculously easy. They sound like they're expensive. That is amazing for reducing like phishing, right? I mean, it's an absolute nightmare for an adversary.
All right, I'm going to stop you there because I go bullshit. Because when I launched and I poured YubiKeys into my platform, no one could sign up. MSPs that are, I think, or have this proven more maturity, right? That they say they are, blah, blah, blah. They're rolling out VSO services, and they go to sign up for a platform that forces them into some kind of pass key, some kind of FIDO authentication, and can't. And I have to dumb down my platform to allow these more mature, quote, quote, MSPs, because they're still doing OTP.
Hey,
so I'm not disagreeing with you that they should be doing it. I feel like they should be doing that, but the actual, the actual day-to-day operations of an MSP, they're not doing this.
No, they're not. There's a lot of people are still taking this network-centric approach and not this protect the core user. As Jesse said, privacy is, identity is the new, right? The new driver. Data is the new driver. Where's the data? Yeah.
Right. It's the new perimeter.
It's the new perimeter.
Yeah, I think so. So we're getting up with last 5 minutes or so here. I could probably talk for hours and hours about what's in your stack. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of those suggestions for Jesse. I'm going to put that in that document, and I will drop the Google Doc in the comments for y'all to have, and then go play with it. Right? Not Jesse's document, the one that we've been building here. And so, with 5 minutes left, we always do this key takeaways, right? And so I'm going to start with Tim. What is your key takeaway?
Key takeaway is being Mr. No, which is very hard, right? Like dealing with Tim at Vital as a MSP probably had some pretty frustrated end users. And getting to that point is really in that conversation, right? Getting a seat at the table, talking about risk management, having a risk register, having a vCISO program, like Jesse said, right? Like this is all a conversation. It's a lot of education, but restricting that attack surface area is being Mr. No, is being Tim Golden 10 years ago, right? And I think that getting this mindset of like, how much can I take away and how much can I get the end user to understand why I'm taking it away, you'll really be on a great path to posturing, strengthening, and really not worrying about, like I said, climbing without a rope, which sounds crazy, but we all do it. Some of us. I mean, we personally at home, do you have like an EDR solution, right? Do you have a SOC watching your back? No, because you're out in the wild. You're being careful, right?
Yeah.
I do, but I'm the exception.
I was gonna say, Tim, don't put yourself out there as like, oh, I'm kind of middle of the road.
Yeah.
I run a SIM that has a 24 stock behind it. And yes, Tim, like.
But you have your own company. Yeah.
I do, and I'm like separating out of the MSP. In fact, I'm no longer even on their devices anymore. So I have like my own device, my own network. I literally just rolled out phishing and training to my people. Right? I got the text this morning. Hey, I just got this email for train. Like, yes, we're doing our own stuff together. But just key takeaway:
focus. You can't be all things to all people, and as we saw, you really need to pick an industry or two and a customer type or two within that industry and specialize in providing a really comprehensive stack for them. Study their pain points, study their weaknesses, study how the attackers and the attack actors attack them, and learn how to disrupt those and how your tools do that, and learn how to relay that to the customer in an easy to understand manner, and I think you'll do pretty well.
Nice. And since I don't get to do this very often, I'm going to talk. I mean, I always get to talk, but so my key takeaway, not just from today, but over this last, what's it been, 6 months or so that we've been doing this, I always use the phrase, start someplace, do something, start now, pick a framework, right? And that's going to continue to be my mantra as I head into next year, thinking about what the next mantra is for working with MSPs. I'm taking a slight paradigm shift as it pertains to your stack, as it pertains to your business or your ICP. Have a champion. Have the person in your company being that key person. They don't have to know everything about a SOC or a SIM or whatever. They just have to be the facilitator, that champion, right? Have that human as part of your MSP to be the champion. And then the second part of that is have a process. Define what your requirements are, define what it is that you're trying to do, define your ideal customer profile, define we want a SOC. Well, why do we want a SOC? Define your thing and your requirements and build your process around it. So it's always people and process. Have the human, have the requirements and process, and then talk to vendors, and then go out and start to find the tools. Because without that, you're just going to be buying a gym membership that you're never going to use, right? So in my opinion, people and process and...
That's how many I have in my stack. If you don't have 500 tools, what the hell are you doing anyway? If you don't have 500 tools, what the hell?
So that's it. It's 3:00. Real quick, Tim, what's coming up next week?
Next week, Jesse and I know you are also speaking at Rejection Con. Is that right? Yeah. And then next Friday on Team Tim, 7 misconceptions about CMMC. Leah Shalabad. So it's going to be a good one. CMMC, FedRAMP, we'll dig into that a little bit. I mean, I think there's so much confusion on both of those. And I know Tim's got some experience, so we'll hopefully be hearing a lot more from him like we just did.
Hold on. I'm going to do this real quick. So let's do this real quick. Let's share this, right? So let's talk about Rejection Con. I know we're going over, but this is really important, right? And so shout out to our friends at Empath, right? Shout out to Wes Spencer, Alex Farling, Kyle Christensen, right? Yeah, it sounds weird. Rejects. Well, we're all American rejects here. So, and, we're going to be, Jesse and Tim is doing a talk. I'm doing a talk, but it's not just me. Like, there are literally dozens and dozens of speakers that have not been able to present really great content to the MSPs, right? And so head on over to Rejection Con, sign up. They have pay what you can model. In fact, I even have free coupon codes. Use compliance risk 50 and get it for free. But before you consider taking my coupon code for free, all the funds go to a really great organization, the Rural Tech Fund, supporting supporting young adults in technology, right? And giving them the opportunity to grow and learn in the Rural Tech Fund, RTF, right? So head on over to Rejection Con. If you see one of the posts on LinkedIn, hit a like, hit a comment, hit a share, right? Not just from me, but from everybody. Like, they want to try to raise money to help support a really great organization. And yes, I know we're 2 minutes over. I'm always a stickler on making sure we meet our times, but this is too important. Next week, 12, 13, 14, you can come here and see, the agenda, I believe, right?
We're back to back. We're both on the 13th. Yeah.
We're both on the 13th, right? So, where are we? Oh, yeah, we're right here. So, right. So there's Tim's at 140.
Jesse's mugshot. He's supposed to be on there as well, but
yeah. So risk management with Tim and Jesse, and then myself and Fifth Wall, talking cyber, and then on the 14th, I have a really great presentation on making policies that don't suck. Protecting your kingdom one night shield at a time.
We're out of here.
So everybody have a really good week, and we'll see you next week.
Subscribe now.